99% of the street drugs that we have now are tainted with fentanyl or other opioids.
Tonight, Vancouver Mayor Kennedy Stewart with an approach to battling overdoses in the city.
I'd like to volunteer to do the prayer.
And perspectives on revitalizing Indigenous languages in the Yukon. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. We begin with sad news tonight out of Saskatchewan. Hockey pioneer Fred Sasakamoose died earlier this afternoon after contracting COVID-19. His death comes just a few days after he was admitted to hospital with COVID-19. Sasakamoose was one of the first Indigenous players to play in the National Hockey League. He played 11 games for the Chicago Blackhawks in the 1954 NHL season. Fred's son, Neil Sasakamoose, took to social media to make the announcement and touched on his last conversation with his father earlier today.
When I talked to him, I asked him if how he was feeling, if he was scared. He said, "I'm not scared." He said, I'm ready to go. If I gotta go, I'm gonna go. I said, "You know what, Dad, if you're tired, you go. You go, and don't worry about us over here. You go. If you're getting tired and you're getting beat up and your body's fighting, and you go ahead and you go."
And our condolences to the family. To Ottawa now, where today's address from Rideau Cottage, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau gave an update on COVID-19 vaccinations. Other countries like the United States are planning to have one as early as December. Trudeau said Canada should not expect to get one until early in 2021. Trudeau said Canada had more than enough agreements in place to ensure everyone will be vaccinated, but the country was caught off guard by COVID and is not able to produce its own vaccines.
Canada no longer has any domestic production capacity for vaccines. We used to have it decades ago, but we no longer have it. Countries like the United States, Germany, and the UK do have domestic pharmaceutical facilities, which is why they're obviously going to prioritize helping their citizens first.
News that Canada could be second in line for vaccines didn't sit well with opposition parties. They all went after the Prime Minister during question period today, beginning with the leader of the Conservative Party.
The Prime Minister told the House that Canadians would be the first in line to receive the vaccine. Today, he admitted we're going to be behind many countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany. Reuters is even reporting that Mexico will receive a vaccine before Canadians. How many more months will it take to flatten the curve because this Prime Minister has been unable to rapidly secure a vaccine?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable leader of the opposition might not have been following this too closely, but Canada is actually being lauded as one of the countries that has achieved the best and largest portfolio of vaccines, of potential vaccines for its citizens, because we know that we are not certain yet which vaccines from which companies are going to be most effective, are going to arrive first. So Canada stepped up and has secured millions of doses of vaccines for Canadians that will be arriving in the coming months. We're going to continue to ensure that Canadians get the protection they need so we can get through this pandemic together.
Correctional facilities in Manitoba continue to deal with outbreaks, and data released today show, as expected, First Nations people account for a high number of COVID cases in these institutions. According to the province's First Nations pandemic response team, First Nations people make up 2/3 of the COVID cases among inmates. The majority of the cases are linked to an outbreak at Headingley Correctional Centre, but the other 6 provincial institutions are also dealing with cases. Stony Mountain Federal Institution has 74 active cases. Indigenous peoples make up 75% of the inmate population in Manitoba. A Mi'kmaq woman is fed up with the shortage of housing in her community in New Brunswick. She posted a YouTube video alleging her chief is ignoring the shortage. But the chief says that is not the case. Angel Moore brings us the story.
I might as well just go live in the woods or live in a ditch. And I needed to shut up and be quiet about things because I didn't matter.
That's part of a 30-minute video of one family talking about the shortage of housing. Ashley Sanipass, a mother of two, posted the video on social media and has no regrets.
I don't hate our chief. I don't wish bad things upon her. I want her to do the right thing. I want her to help her people. I want her to hear us. This is not an attack. This is a plea.
Despite what Ashley Sanipass says, Chief Anne Mary Steele was hurt by the video.
I feel like they're targeting me, not the chief. They're targeting Anne Mary, and it hurts my heart. And I don't need that negativity in my life. There's too much negativity here as it is.
Just over 100 people live in Bugtush First Nation, with 5 people on the waiting list for homes. Councillor Brenton LeBlanc is in charge of housing and says the solution is not that easy.
We need a lot more houses, and our land, we have no land left. Even if we do get qualified for houses, where are we going to put them? All of our land has been squatted on. Like, it's ridiculous.
Gary Sanipass, Ashley's father, was chief 15 years ago, and today he lives in a hut. He says the lack of housing has become generational, and his family has been living in poor conditions for the last 5 years.
I've struggled to make sure like they didn't have to suffer like this, but it seems like the more I've tried to prevent this, it's the same thing over and over again. They are suffering.
Ashley waited 2 years for a home, so when the old daycare building became vacant last summer, she moved in. But there is no bathtub, the kitchen is not wired for a stove, and a firewall needs to be built. Ashley is afraid to vacate the building for the renovations.
I was told that if I leave this place, I lose it permanently and it'll go to somebody else. And I tried a long time to live off reserve, and I just can't do it.
Steele says Ashley will not lose her home, and the video is not going to change the housing shortage.
Like, they can shame me, they can bully me, they can be mean to me, they can put whatever they want. It still doesn't change the fact. We were working on it. We were waiting for our funding to come in.
When that funding arrives, the daycare will be renovated into a home for Ashley and her family. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Bugtush First Nation, New Brunswick.
To the West Coast now, where the Mayor of Vancouver is proposing an unconventional way of trying to save lives from the opioid crisis. Tina House has more.
What I can't help thinking about is every morning when I wake up as mayor, somebody's going to die of an overdose. And this has been going on almost every day since I've been elected.
Vancouver Mayor Kennedy Stewart says he wants to decriminalize small amounts of hard drugs in the hopes of encouraging a harm reduction approach to the ever-growing opioid epidemic.
Really, 99% of the street drugs that we have now are tainted with fentanyl or other opioids, and it leads to overdose all the time. Our first responders are burned out, but I think most importantly, community members are just, devastated by loss of friends and family.
And here on Vancouver's downtown east side, also known as Ground Zero, many say this will help, including Cindy, who lost her brother to an overdose.
So what do you think about the mayor wanting to legalize hard drugs?
I think it's great. I think it'll be cleaner. I think people will respond to it. And I think it's great. Instead of all these dirty drugs around, you don't know what's in them. Could be rat poisoning, they'll chip some drywall. I've heard of it all. And it's terrible.
Sarah Blythe works right on the front lines at the Overdose Prevention Society.
I think it's great news. All levels of government seem to be wanting to work together to come up with a way so that we're not penalizing people and putting them into jail, that we're actually getting them, classifying it as a medical situation and treating it as such.
Since the state of emergency was called in 2016, over 1,500 people have lost their lives due to an overdose in the city of Vancouver, and 328 people have died just in this past year alone.
You know, we've tried the traditional measures. They're not working. We have to think more broadly. We need federal help. We need provincial help. Because I want a day to come where I don't wake up and there's another dead resident who's needlessly lost their life.
If City Council approves, it would make the City of Vancouver the only jurisdiction in Canada to make small amounts of hard drugs legal. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
So many jurisdictions dealing with record high overdoses. Time to step aside for a quick break. Still to come, efforts to revitalize languages on the brink of extinction.
Once I started learning the language, I realized that was the void, and I'm now filling it.
Welcome back. With all of the 8 traditional languages in trouble of disappearing in the Yukon, hundreds of First Nations people are now relearning their traditional language as adults. For APTN's Perspectives on Language Revitalization, Sarah Connors delved into the history of why the territory's languages are fading away and how some people are bringing them back.
Kagane, I'd like to volunteer to do the prayer.
Gus Moorberg is taking an online native language class in his kitchen. The 40-year-old's only been in class for 6 weeks, but he can already say a prayer in Tlingit. Its meaning is something he takes to heart.
Our language is strong. It will exist forever.
Moorberg is from Teslin Tlingit Council. Only his grandmother could speak Tlingit. But as a silent speaker, trauma and stigma prevented her from passing on the language.
Obviously it doesn't feel good because, it was our language and it was taken from us, by residential schools.
Like most Indigenous Yukoners, Moorberg can't speak his native language, and now all of the territory's 8 Indigenous languages are considered endangered.
The Navajo language, the speakers came up to the Yukon.
Dan Klin is a linguist and Southern Shoshone instructor at the Yukon Native Language Center. He says most of the territory's languages have fewer than 20 speakers left.
I don't think there's one community in the Yukon that's not in trouble. And most of the elders have died off, they were the ones who were the fluent speakers.
Klin says to understand language loss, it's important to go back in time. It was World War II and the worry about a Japanese invasion that brought the construction of the Alaskan Highway in 1942. Built to connect Alaska to the lower 48 states, the highway made for easier travel within the territory and also allowed missionaries to enter communities they never had access to before. The results were devastating.
The white government teamed up with the white church, and then the kids got taken away, and that's when most of them lost their language.
Before the highway, Selkirk First Nation elder Lizzie Hall could only speak Northern Shoshone, but at 12 years old, she was sent to residential school and was forced to stop speaking her language.
If they catch you speaking your language, they just don't say nothing to you. They grab your hand, take you into the office, you get strapping.
A residential school survivor himself, Klin says another way the schools erased language was shame.
Even though, it might not seem overt, but we were indoctrinated to think that our parents lived in, in inferior surroundings. They didn't have running water, they didn't have indoor toilets. In that way, they kind of indoctrinated a lot of young people to think that their parents and grandparents were inferior, and probably contributed to their not wanting to learn the language.
Where's the brother that taught you English?
Right there, this one here.
Yeah. Hall says the schools were effective in erasing cultural identity, and for a time she could only speak English. But a conversation with her grandmother made her realize her language was worth remembering.
She said, you take a good look at yourself. In her language, she said to me, you take a good look at yourself. You look at the color of your face before you talk like that to me. She told me she go like this too.
Now, she says she's one of the lucky ones because she remembers a language that most residential school survivors have forgotten.
But these kids that were taken 4 years old, 5 years old, they don't have a clue what is our language is.
This is a neat language too.
Now, work is being done to boost the number of language speakers in the territory. Most First Nations in the Yukon have developed their own language revitalization programs, and the Yukon Native Language Center has made massive strides to document languages, record speakers, and offer Zoom classes to around 200 students in all 8 languages.
You're helping your grandchildren out, even though they're not even born yet.
Moorberg is one of those students. Every week, he attends 3 two-hour Zoom classes and also is expected to do self-learning as part of the course. Finding the time to study while working full-time hasn't been easy.
You know, I've made a lot of sacrifices to learn the language and making the time, trying not to procrastinate.
But he says it's worth it.
There was just something missing in my life and like a void, and then once I started learning the language, I realized that that was the void, and I'm now filling it.
So far, he's learned 200 vocabulary words and can even sing a song in Tlingit. He's even been able to pass on a few words to his 2 teenage children.
When they come home, I'll say, Masaiati, which means, how are you doing? And, with a little coaxing, they can respond. Hatjake, and my daughter says, Weyade, which means, and you?
Moorberg says he's proof you're never too old to start learning, and once he becomes more fluent, he hopes to eventually start teaching it to other Tlingit people, hopefully helping to erase over 7 decades of silence.
I'd like to set a good example for the younger people in my nation, and show them that anything's possible. I've come a long ways and I've overcome barriers to learn the language, and if I can do it, so can you.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
What a great story. Looking forward to what's coming at that series. Time now for one more quick break, and then coming up, we'll hear how a young man has been passing his time during the global pandemic.
It's great to have an outlet, to push yourself into, whether it just be punching a punching bag or throwing stuff at a wall or playing music. Little things like those can really help a lot.
Welcome back. Let's check in now with our photo of the day. A beautiful afternoon from the banks of the Red River, looking at a train bridge into St. Boniface from downtown Winnipeg. Thanks to Jesse for sending that one in. A blanket of snow there, but I wouldn't trust that ice. You can send us what you've got. Email your shot to share at aptn.ca. We'll do our best to get them on the air. Time now to take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, +2 with showers for Halifax, 4 above and rain in St. John's, 7 below for Nain and Happy Valley Goose Bay. +2 with a rain-snow mix in Montreal, snow and 5 below in Chibougamau. +6 with showers in Toronto, 7 above and showers in Sault Ste. Marie. +2 in Thunder Bay, -2 with snow for Sioux Lookout. 10 below in Churchill, -3 in God's Lake. +1 in Winnipeg, 4 above in Brandon and Dauphin. +3 and sunny for Regina, -1 with snow in Saskatoon. -7 with snow for Uranium City and Stony Rapids. Over to northern Alberta, -5 with snow in Fort McMurray, partly cloudy and 6 below for Grande Prairie. 0 and snow for Medicine Hat and Edmonton, +2 in Lethbridge. +9 with showers in Vancouver, 3 with rain in Kamloops. 16 below for Fort Nelson, 0 with snow for Prince George. Minus 22 in Old Crow, showers, and 8 below in Whitehorse. Minus 10 with snow for Yellowknife, 16 below in Wrigley and Norman Wells. Minus 18 in Sax Harbor, 20 below in Fort McPherson. Minus 12 in Arviette, 18 below with snow for Cambridge Bay. Minus 23 in Resolute, 20 below in Clyde River. To northern Saskatchewan now, where a young man in Wollaston Lake has been keeping himself busy during this pandemic by playing guitar online. And as Priscilla Wolf tells us, he's making a name for himself.
17-year-old Dylan Gadson-Larry hasn't let a disability set him back from pursuing music as a hobby and hopefully a career. He was born with one hand, and the teenager from Wollaston Lake, Denunsala Nation, has been uploading videos of himself playing the guitar.
I am a self-taught musician. I did teach myself over 2 years now.
Before the pandemic, he was attending high school and joined a band as lead guitarist, but that was put on hold. He's now doing online classes and keeping himself busy with music.
It does keep me pretty busy, but we are very far up north. I think we're about 8 to 9 hours north of Prince Albert. So we're pretty far up north. And with kind of uploading videos and teaching myself music, it does keep me pretty preoccupied.
Gadson-Larry says he's like any other teenager, and he has struggled with self-confidence. His message to other youth: find something creative.
It's great to have an outlet, like to push yourself into, like, whether it just be punching a punching bag or throwing stuff at a wall or playing music. Little things like those can really help a lot.
He says he keeps pushing himself to learn more and practice his instruments.
I got into playing much more complicated songs. I got into learning guitar solos, teaching myself music theory, which I still can. And then after guitar, I've been getting into playing the drums.
Gadson-Larry aspires to one day share his music in public.
I hope to get in front of a crowd. Small, maybe a small stage, or big stage. I just hope to get back on stage and play the music I love in front of everybody.
For now, the internet is his big stage. Priscilla Wolf, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Wow, Dylan, that is wicked. Keep on rocking. Filmmaker and band counselor Angelina McLeod is our guest on a new episode of Face to Face tonight. McLeod says growing up in Shoal Lake 40 in crowded housing without clean drinking water seemed normal. That is until she started visiting Winnipeg, a city enjoying the benefits of the water from Shoal Lake.
So when I came to the city here and then I noticed that, I always wished, like, oh, I wish I was born non-Indigenous so I could have clean drinking water, I could have all these things that we don't have back home. That's how I felt growing up. But as I went to school and university, I started learning more about myself and my ancestry, and then I started getting into activism and everything, and then so I started feeling more empowered about myself.
And you can catch that entire episode of Face to Face in about 2 minutes' time, because that is all the time we have for your APTN National News. For news anytime, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great night.